Big news from the border, a major drop in undocumented immigrants trying to cross the U.S.-Mexico border. That's according to Customs and Border Protection. Illegal crossings at the southwest border were down 40% last month, a drop that Homeland Security Secretary John Kelly calls unprecedented. CNN's Polo Sandoval is joining me now. He's been looking into this. So, Polo, what do the numbers tell us?
Well, Kate, they tell us that this is the first time that we see a decrease in February of apprehensions for the first time in the last 17 years or so, according to some of those figures from Customs and Border Protection. And the Trump administration saying that they are crediting this decrease to their new immigration action, some of this enforcement increases that we've also seen from the Department of Homeland Security, which means deterrence, obviously, according to many experts, would be a tremendous factor here, Kate, because you have people from Mexico and mainly Central American countries who now may be under the impression that as soon as they set foot on U.S. soil illegally, then they will be on that quick track for deportation. I spoke to Border Patrol in the last hour or so. They told me their enforcement capabilities also playing a factor here, which means authorities' ability to essentially arrest, detain, and remove some of these individuals. And you'll notice that release was not in that equation there. So again, that's fueling that concern that many people may be on that quick path to deportation as soon as it set foot on U.S. soil. Now, it's important to point out, though, some context here. This decrease is followed by what was an extreme increase that we saw last November during one of our many visits to the border to McAllen, Texas. We saw this increase of about 35%, according to authorities, in a number of undocumented people that were crossing into the United States. People were wanting to be in the United States before Trump took office, and now that he's here, obviously that is one factor. Is it the only factor? Many experts would argue that that's not the case.
Not the case, but an important statistic that you can be sure that this administration is happy to put out right now. Great to see you, Polo. Thank you very, very much. Speaking of the border, just a short time ago, top Republican in the Senate, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, he weighed in on the proposed border wall and on President Trump's promise that Mexico will pay for it. Listen.
There are some places along the border where that's probably not the best way to secure the border. But I think General Kelly knows what he's doing. I think the president picked an outstanding person to be in charge of Homeland Security, and my suspicion is that we will take his advice.
Do you believe that Mexico will pay for it?
No.
Let me bring in right now Angela Rye, CNN political commentator, former executive director of the Congressional Black Caucus. Joseph Borelli is here, Republican New York City Councilman Kirsten Powers, a CNN political analyst and USA Today columnist. And Matt Lewis is joining us from afar, CNN political commentator and senior columnist at the Daily Beast. Joseph Borelli, wait a second. What?
No.
Now Mexico is not paying for the wall? The fact that the Senate Majority Leader is laughing about it now. What?
Look, I think there's a desire as some of these sort of on-the-record, off-the-record panel discussions to be a little funny and be a little quirky.
This is not off the record. This is fully on the record.
I think he was trying to be polite here. But let's not forget that as recently as January, right after the president was sworn in, there were a number of interviews where reporters confronted the president on his plan for paying for the border wall. And he also agreed that the president of Mexico is not going to sign a check to the president of the United States to pay for the border wall. And it would come out of other things. There's been stories in the Washington Post talking about border adjustments. There's been talk about making
That's not what Mitch McConnell said, and he had full opportunity to clarify.
I think he was trying to be funny. He was chuckling at it. It was part of an overall conversation and his confidence in John Kelly as far as sealing the border wall. But look, there was never a case where Mexico was going to sign a check. I'll say it again. This was never going to happen. So the reality has always been that it's going to have to come out of some negotiations as part of a broader negotiation with the trade deficit between Mexico. 160 countries have a border adjustment. If we put that on our border with Mexico, we would have paid for it 10 times.
Guys, I think wiggling. We're going to call that wiggling.
Is that what we're calling it?
No.
No. Is it? No.
No. Just no.
But Kirsten, I mean, please, is this an okay Oh, actually, Kirsten, please stand by. We're going to take you to the White House right now. President Trump.
Thank you, everybody.
Speaking. Let's listen.
Good morning, and greatly appreciate you being here. We have some real experts with us, and we have some great bankers with us. Today's discussion is crucial to my job's agenda and to the American people. Community banks play a vital role in helping create jobs by providing approximately half of all loans to small businesses, and that's been dwindling because the community banks have been in big trouble. Nearly half of all private sector workers are employed by small businesses. We must ensure access to capital for small businesses and for small businesses to grow. Community banks, the backbone of small business in America. We are going to preserve our community banks. You probably noticed I signed an executive order on regulation on February 3rd, I believe it was. And that's a big executive order, a very powerful executive order. It's taking a lot of the regulation away. You'll be able to loan, you'll be able to be safe, but you'll be able to provide the jobs that we want and also create great businesses. So it's an honor to have you with us today, and perhaps we could go around the room and we'll start with Dorothy and say who you are and who you represent. Go ahead, Dorothy.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm Dorothy Savarese. I'm from Cape Cod 5 Mutual Company on Cape Cod, Massachusetts.
And I'm Leslie Anderson, and I'm with the Bank of Bennington in Bennington, Nebraska.
Tim Zimmerman, Standard Bank, suburbs of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Great.
Rebecca Romero-Rainey from Sentinel Bank in beautiful Taos, New Mexico.
Very good.
I'm Luann Cundiff with First State Bank of St. Charles.
Scott Highfield, Baghdad, Texas, Corpus Christi, Texas.
Good. Hi, Scott.
Lori Stewart from the other way, Seattle.
Jeff Sabrowski from Chesapeake Bank from Kilmarnock, Virginia.
Good, thank you.
And I'm Ken Burgess with First Capital Bank of Texas in Midland, Texas.
Great. Good, thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Document dump from WikiLeaks. Any thoughts? Thank you, Mr. President.
And that's called Bars and Tone. There you have President Trump not taking questions after sitting down and making introductions. He's meeting with CEOs from small and community banks. Obviously, they're sitting there with some of his economic advisors. It sounded like he got a question about WikiLeaks, and he answered it with a smile. The panel is back with me. Since he's not answering questions, let's go back to my questions. Let's talk about the border. All right, here's your pick. Talk about border wall.
Okay.
Can they go back on their promise? Is that okay? Or does the Trump administration deserve some credit here? Border crossings down 40% since last month. That's a big deal.
Well, okay. If you believe that it's a good thing that people, for example, refugees who are fleeing Central America, very dangerous circumstances, no longer are coming to the United States as refugees, then I guess, yes, it's a good thing. I don't think that's a good thing. I think that what that says is people no longer are seeing the United States as a refuge for them. The other thing is, in talking to immigration experts, is they're not sure exactly what the causation is here, and they think part of it could be that the coyotes are now charging more money to bring people here because of it's going to be much more difficult to get in, and so some people just don't have the money. And then you add in like these inhumane things like General Kelly talking about separating mothers from children. People, yes, does that work? Yes, guess what? That does scare people. But the question is that what we want our policy to be, to scare people who are trying to flee violence?
But border crossings, illegal border crossings are down. Matt Lewis, I assume you might have a different perspective on this.
Yeah, look, I think this is a good thing. This is not going and rounding up people and deporting them. This is not, kicking grandmothers out of the country. This is Donald Trump, by the force of his rhetoric, having people this isn't even self-deportation. This is like non-illegal crossing, right? He is convincing people not to show up. And look, I think there are probably a lot of reasons why immigration, the trends of immigration are down. But this, what is it, a 40% decrease in the month of February? It obviously is Donald Trump. And he doesn't have to do anything else, maybe. Maybe all he has to do is talk about this, and people will stop coming.
That assumes that there's no danger, right, in rhetoric. And I can't help but to think about, even though it's just about the border crossings piece, there have been things that have happened to people here. And these folks, to Kirsten's point, they're trying to escape situations for many of them that are not safe. And they're saying, I would rather risk where I am than try to come there.
Angela, who promised that he was going to protect the border, and that is a national security concern. You heard that from his head of Department of Homeland Security. You hear that from many other folks, that if you're going to come in, you should come in legally.
I understand that, and I guess what I'm saying is the numbers are down, but at what cost, right? At some point, we have to value the conditions that human beings are experiencing, not even within our borders. You also have to question, Mitch McConnell's point about the border wall. He brought up the border wall being ineffective at some points. They tried SBI Net before, which is the Secure Border Initiative, electric and physical fencing. It doesn't work. So why can't we just take a moment to say, well, let's figure out something that works and that is humane?
Okay, the Democrats had this opportunity to fix border regulations and laws, and they didn't. I don't know when it's become not PC to say that obeying the law is a good thing, and more people obeying the law is a good thing.
And on another front, which we won't get to, but it's my good segue, Democrats also had an opportunity to fix health care. And now Republicans have that same chance. It's a tough thing. Why do I say that, guys? As I thank you very much, because we're waiting for House Speaker Paul Ryan to take to the microphone. House Speaker Paul Ryan has no doubt that the Republican health care plan will pass, whatever makes it to the floor. But members of his own party is where his problem is right now. Members of his own party are saying, pause, start over, get it right, don't get it fast. In just minutes, we're waiting to hear from the speaker. It seems like they've brought in some audiovisual equipment for this one. We're going to bring you those remarks live when they begin. Also this, American flags flying on military vehicles in northern Syria. Breaking news in the battle against ISIS. Thanks. We'll be right back.